Welcome back to Crystal Ball. My guest is Mr. Mihir Doshi, Managing Director and Country Head of Credit Suisse in India. You spoke about divestment and the imminent coming to the market of Coal India and ONGC. Do you think FIIs and even domestic investors will have a healthy appetite for the divestment candidates, or will there be that lurking fear that should crude prices once again go back to $100, this commitment to marketized diesel prices, this commitment to allow these companies to be run as companies and not as an extension of the fisc will wither away? Will FIIs approach these divestment candidates with that confidence that they are going to be better run companies?
So it's interesting. If you look at the line of questioning, Latha, there's one, the cynic asking the question, there's the optimist answering the question. Or maybe you may not be a cynic, but at least you're playing devil's advocate and asking
yes,
these questions in a cynical manner. Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. I think very clearly, of course, having oil prices around the $80–85 a barrel versus $100 a barrel is a fear that will the government continue with its subsidy if it goes back to 100. I think, listen, the jury is out. I would like to believe everything remains on track. I think that when we had a previous government, the issues were around decision making and some other issues which I've discussed in the media in the past. I think if there's something which clearly is in favor of this present government, it's its ability to make decisions and stick by them. And my vote is that they will stick by the decisions which they're making. So I remain hopeful. Will the FIIs give it the same rope as I'm giving the government? I think the proof of the pudding will be when we hit the markets. At least the government, if you were to look at one aspect of the stock market, it's not only gone up because of domestic investors, it's gone up because of foreign institutional investors also. And at the present moment, they're giving this government a thumbs up in terms of the decision-making process. So let's hope that when the disinvestment program is out there, they give the same thumbs up to the government.
Okay. Well, yes, I agree. The jury is out, and I agree also with you that I'm trying to play devil's advocate deep in my heart. I'm as much hoping that the optimism that you are speaking about actually comes around to being. But let me get more on this public sector banks part. What are you picking up? That there will be enough incremental changes to create a seminal change in the quality of public sector bank management? Should we see that in a year or in 24 months?
I can answer that question more on what I've picked up, like I said, at our, we've, I think, published some research on that on our meeting with the governor. I think he very clearly recognizes that there's a need to do that in terms of governance, in terms of boards, in terms of how these banks are managed. I just think it's a matter of implementation. It's nobody wants to have. I think people would like to have a benevolent dictator in this country rather than a dictator. And I think the decisions or execution of decisions will happen in a phased-out manner, not in an overnight take it or leave it manner. So, I genuinely believe that even the PSU banks will see these changes in the next 18 months. So, if I was to put a time frame on it, I would say 12 to 18 months, 12 months minimum at least. And I would say 20 to 24 months is when we would see these changes come through. But I do believe that they will come through.
What are you expecting by way of changes? Some security of tenure, board composition changes, or even stake sales?
So I think the first two for sure is something which we had discussed and we can see happen. I think in terms of stake sale, I think keeping in mind, obviously we got to keep the interest of the employees in mind. Do I see a stake sale or do I see a merger? I see, let's put it this way, 18 months from now, lesser banks than more banks.
Okay.
And I've said this, I've gone out on the limb and said this 18 months ago when there was talk of a lot of new licenses being given out. My point was what we need are larger, stronger banks rather than more banks. So my belief is that, or my hope is that we will see bank consolidation take place also over and above tenure and board composition and governance being the changes only.
You know, I'm just looking at all your house views. Your domestic local expert Neelkant is very constructive on Indian equities. Your regional expert Shakti Siva has India as her biggest overweight market. You have a finger on the pulse of several nodes in the global economy. You know, European experts, US experts. Do you think through 2015 as well, the global environment will remain clement towards Indian equities? I mean, enough liquidity and India remaining the preferred market because of domestic developments?
So, I clearly think very highly of both Shakti as well as Neelkant and my overall research team, which we have in Mumbai, and they remain constructive depending on, of course, specific companies in the sectors they cover. And my personal view, which I pick up from either corporate India or the investors I speak to, is aligned with that. I do believe that 2015 will be opportunities for the market to do a lot better than where we're going to hopefully end this year out at. Of course, again, like everything else, there's always a risk of execution. There's macro factors, and if anything, I genuinely think the macro factors, when I say macro, I mean global factors, actually speaking, probably will lend itself even positive towards India in terms of what other countries would investors look at. I think vis-a-vis the other BRIC countries, India is still in good shape, and I think that's going to attract capital. I think Europe and Japan are already talking about a bit of easing going into 2015. That will benefit India. I think the US have been talking about raising rates, but I think that talk is quieting down. So, I think if anything, the global factors as well as the domestic attraction, yes, I remain positive on Indian capital markets. I think probably being in this country 20 years, probably this is the most I've been positive in a long time.
Okay. Well, then one more question on this positive note, more because you've also been an investment banker for a better part of your career. At the height of that 2003 to 2008 bull run, we saw a different kind of animal spirits among Indian companies. Would anybody have dreamt, even in 2003 or even 2006, that Chorus would be bought by an Indian company, that Jaguar Land Rover would be bought by an Indian company, and even Novelist? I mean, I could go on. It was quite a long list. Do you see that phase coming back? We saw a long lull after that 2008 burst.
Yeah, so I think it's a fair question. 07 we saw, 06 we saw Chorus, we saw Jaguar Land Rover, we saw other investments in Canada and the US. I think that was partially a combination of corporate India finding opportunities or feeling that the opportunities were available to them offshore more than in India, and therefore going out and making investments overseas. Do I see that animal spirit coming back? My answer is probably no. I think there's enough for them to digest and actually get the domestic side of their companies continue to take advantage of what's happening in India. But do I see, post that we have seen, depending on the sector, FMCG, we have seen it small, but we have seen Godrej go out and do even post the 08 animal spirit, we have seen them make acquisitions. We have seen pharmaceutical companies go out and make acquisitions overseas, or of course get acquired by foreign companies. I think both going out and coming in, I see foreign interest. But my belief is we will see more of foreigners coming in over the next 3 years than Indians going out. Because I hope that my views on India remain as positive as they are today, and the opportunity lies here rather than lies abroad.
So basically you're saying...
If anything, I'd love to see...
basically you're saying Mr. Modi's Make in India slogan will find people who will find takers. You think that that slogan is going to become a reality and foreigners will bite?
I think the Make in India slogan will become a reality depending on the sector we look at. I think for what economy we are making in India for. So for example, if you're playing to the middle class in India, you're playing to the 1.2 million population of India, I think Make in India will only expand in India. making India as a base for exports and for foreign companies to come in and set up an export base out here, I think is going to go hand in hand with how we develop our infrastructure. So maybe that's stage 2. Stage 1, make in India for the Indian economy, I think will be a reality over the next 3 to 5 years.
Oh, that's sage advice for a foreigner. Okay, we are still in the immediate aftermath of the Festival of Lights and of the New Year for the business community. Why don't you leave our investors with some ideas of which is your best sector for the next 3 years, 2 years, 5 years, or best sectors, not just one?
Latha, that's normally a question I've always ducked, and I've always deferred to Neelkant to talk about sectors, or Ashish Gupta, my head of research and banks analyst, to talk about that. Having said that, I will say this. I mentioned the 1.2 billion people earlier. I am most optimistic on a country and the economy of this country picking up again, and the middle class and the youth of India benefiting from that. I think, therefore, I remain optimistic on the consumer sector, for sure. And I think what's connected to the consumer sector, maybe financials, maybe auto space. I think sectors which will benefit from India growing is where I remain bullish. But that's my personal views. I know my house views maybe a bit more go into more depth in terms of specific companies and specific sectors. But I've always, for me, India is about the 1.2 billion people, and the benefits of catering to them is what I'm most optimistic on.
We get to read your research reports enough, Mr. Doshi. We don't get to hear you, a person with 3 decades of experience within India and India vis-a-vis other economies. It's a pleasure listening to you, and your advice is well taken. Thank you very much for joining us today. That's it on this edition of Crystal Ball. Thanks for watching.